Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright my friends, I just gotta warn you off the top. I literally just got my hair done. I dyed it myself last night and then I went in to get a cut today, which it might not look shorter to you guys from here because it still goes past the camera, but I cut about 8 inches off of my hair and it does stop. Oops, you still can't even see it. It stops right below my boobs, but it was down to my ass crack and I'm not even joking. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm not kidding. And I've just been really wanting to get it done. So it's in the flatter style right now. I just put some sea salt spray in it because I wasn't going to pay to get it styled when I will be going to the gym in a little bit and all that stuff, and it'll get ruined anyway. So I wasn't going to pay an extra $20 to have it styled just to go to the gym. So it was in a straight style like this right after I got it done. But I did get the wolf cut with framing. It's just long because again, I wasn't quite ready to go shorter, but if I start liking the vibe, I won't wait 3.5 years to get a haircut again. And I'll maybe do it up a little shorter. But I think like a lot of people, we were feeling inspired by some haircuts from off campus. But I know myself and I can't do the bangs. So I do have the framing pieces in. I don't have it all done, but I was just feeling it. So anyway, I had to mention that at the beginning, not because I know I'll get a lot of compliments on it, but because I'm probably going to be playing with it a little bit. And some people get real sensitive when I touch my hair too much. Not most of you. Most of you are the bestest. But if I'm touching it a bit much, it's because it's new, okay? And it's flouncy, and I didn't just have to put it in a ponytail or a braid to get it out of my way. And I got all those dead ends cut off, and she's feeling fancy and free. And, you know, there is some hair shedding still a little bit. But anyway, you're here for some recommendations, or in this case today, for me to rank my, the recent releases that I've read since March. Now, I mean, I guess I usually do make this every 6 to 8 weeks, so it's not like it's been that much, but I just feel like it's been so long since I've made one of these because there's just been all the Outlander and off campus and springtime and just all this stuff going on. And also I didn't know if I had read enough recent releases to even make the video, but of course I have because I read a ton of those. I wasn't sure if I had, right? So the last time I made one of these was the very beginning of March, but it actually had December, January, and February reads in it, or it was the very, very end of December through the end of February. So this is basically covering all my March, April, and halfway through May recent releases that I've read. So the way I do these videos is in a fun little ranking style. No, I don't use the cool like board or anything because I'd rather just talk to you about them. But I have all the books listed out that were new within when I read them 2 months, or they were ones I read as arcs. So that's how I do it. So I, of course, will tell you as I'm talking about these which ones were arcs and which ones were like I just read them brand new. But in general, they came out no earlier in these ones, I believe, than January, because I count a recent release like within 2 months before I read it, or if it's even an arc that I'm reading or anything. So yeah, y'all know I've been real wrapped up in fan fiction, so I was surprised I'd gotten through so many new releases to talk about today, but we definitely do. So without further ado, I'll get started with these. I start with the ones I like the least and I work my way up to my favorites, except for any books that are from Clare Kent or Noelle Adams. I'm going to talk about that one right now because I don't rate my books from her. I technically rate them all 5 stars because I'm reading them for content because I work for her. But the Clare Kent pen name had a new release this May. I read it back near the beginning of April, of course, and that was Service. So this was book 2 in the Central Cities series from her. Very difficult to say. And it's a follow-up to Devotion, but really it is another book in her like 2nd gen series is what's going on in these ones. It takes place 46 years after Impact / when the asteroid hit And in this case, the hero is actually a son of Lane and Travis. And the heroine, she is the sister to the heroine from Ashes. She was also in Devotion. We saw her in there. And she is kind of a rebel leader herself. And Ben is her right-hand man. And so the backstory for her is that, Annabelle, is that she was in, the Central City. She grew up with the heroine from Ashes, who is Teresa. Yeah, pulled that out. And they ended up, their father was a rebel who had died. And so they were left with their stepmother. And then because their mother, we never knew what happened to her back in the other one. And Annabelle, she had married off to someone within the city to be safe and comfortable. But then she just couldn't take it anymore. And so she ended up leaving her husband, and her bodyguard, Ben, ended up coming with her. So I enjoyed this so much, of course, and it is a Easter egg basically until the end that he is the son of Lane and Travis. But if you've read the Kindle series, you know that Lane and Travis have a son named Ben. It gets told to you in Beacon. And so it was one I was really looking forward to. And something else I had a lot of fun with this month is working on actually a genealogy and timeline post for Clare Kent Instagram. So that will hopefully be coming soon to share, because now her world is like expanding so much. And there's stuff on the coast, there's stuff in the central cities. It's like all over the place. And it just was really fun to read it and piece those things together, because she really doesn't write anything down. She keeps track of everything in her head. And so for me, helping with her social medias and being her, like content reader and stuff like that, I need to keep it all straight. And so I was like, hey, I know that your brain, you're so brilliant that you can just remember all this stuff, but like I need us to write it down so I can reference it later. And thankfully she's been really open to me doing that, and I just love it. I love figuring it all out and piecing it together. Okay, now getting into the regular rankings. So I did have a 3-star book to talk about this time, just very briefly, and that is Sullivan by Melanie Moreland. So this one was a pretty big disappointment to me. It was another book that's connected with her Mafia books, but this one is the Mafia, is he the lawyer or businessman or something for them? And he is a Scot who lives in Ireland, and our heroine is from Canada, and she's doing a work release there. And they actually end up at the same cabin because she works with his cousin, and the cousin actually offers her the cottage because it's a cottage that lots of them have stayed at. He lets his family members stay there with no questions asked. Only he also plans to take a weekend away, and so they both end up staying there, and it ends up being a snowed in type of thing. Now, normally I would absolutely love that and not have any problems with it. The only thing is that it felt... So Melanie Moreland does insta-love a lot, and she really does do it in her darker romances. It's one of the ways that she softens the darkness of the books to have the hero be really obsessed. I'm okay with that, all right? I absolutely am. It just felt off, and I couldn't pin down why. It felt so quick. Well, when I finished the book, I found out, and I didn't really pay attention because I could just get offered her ALCs, and I usually love listening to them, so I didn't think about it too much. But when I was reading up on it afterwards, I discovered that Sullivan was originally in a anthology, like a holiday one or something like that, and they get snowed in or locked in at this place. And then it made sense, because if it had only been 100 pages, their insta-love while they're at the cabin makes sense because that's how it's paced. However, when she expanded the book to give it more plot and make it last longer, she didn't change that original part of it, right? So it just feels like she absolutely falls in love with this guy, and then everything just works out for them after that. And I really think that this is one that it should have been kept as a novella, because this is already a short audiobook. The audiobook was only like 6 hours, and I was bored for almost half of it. So that's a harsh thing, but it's true. And I ended up only giving this one 3 stars because I was just so bored, and it was so insta-love, and then there was no tension in the back half of it. There is some external conflict from someone who's kind of a villain, but there was no stakes or anything left for me in their romance. For me, that's how I felt. So, big fan of Melanie Moreland. Will definitely still read again, but I was pretty bored by that one. Okay, then I had 2 3.5-star reads, and one of them was, let me see which color that is. Oh, Drifting Dawn by Samantha Young. And yeah, this one, my big problem with this one was the flashbacks. And I know I sometimes can work with flashbacks. I won't rant about this one. For this video, since, you know, I've talked in depth about all of these, of course, I will have links to my weekly wrap-ups. Drifting Dawn, I wanted to love so much. I usually enjoy Samantha Young so much, but my big issue and how I explained it is that this book was both show and tell, right? And a lot of times people say, show me, don't tell me. Well, in a book, you're always being told stuff because it's a book. It's fine. It's not the same as a film or whatever. However, where you can completely step over the line is when you both show and tell. And so what they would do is in the present time, either direction, like we would hear about an incident that happened, and then it was like the author had to show us the flashback so that we'd believe her that it really happened. And I'm like, I would, because again, I have loved some with flashbacks that are second chance romance, right? That's kind of how they usually are, is you had a first time you were in love and this is your second chance, right? And usually I can get behind that. But the problem with this one for me is that we would show a flashback and then we would talk about the flashback, or we would talk about the flashback and then show it. And so it just led to the whole book feeling like we were stuck in the past. Even once we got to the point where we were no longer doing the flashbacks, we referenced the pain of their past so many times. And I was like, where is the room for them to be in love again in the present? Because we're just stuck hating each other from the past or being sad about how it worked out. So that was pretty disappointing to me, and the thing that saved it was the audiobook being narrated by who it was narrated by, because I love Shane East, and also the female narrator, who I can't pronounce her name, so I'm not going to try to say it, but they're a really great pairing together in these Scottish romances. And then the other was one that I just read and ranted about in a recent release, or in a recent video, so I'll leave that one alone as well, but it was Midnight Prince, which, yes, talked about this one. This one is a royal romance that's supposed to be a bit darker, where our heroine is the Cinderella reimagined type thing, Ella, and our hero is Rowan, and they end up falling for each other. But she's supposed to be spying on him and sabotaging the family, and he knows that she could possibly be a saboteur, but he still is fucking her at every opportunity and just recklessly putting his family in danger. But I have said I do still want to continue this series because I really liked the first 2 and I really like the underlying mystery and I love this author. So for me, this was honestly probably my least favorite I've ever read from her, and I've read about 10 of her books at this point, and this one just wasn't it, and that's okay. Like, it was the same with the Samantha Young. These are normal favorite authors of mine, and those ones just were not scratching the itch for me right now. Okay, now we'll go to the 4 stars. So these were all ones that I enjoyed more than I didn't. So let's go through what happened. So I'd forgot where in the order this one fit, so I had to write it back at the top of the list. So, but one of them that I gave 4 stars to was The Rule of 3 by Sarah Kate. This is an MMF erotic romance. There's a sex club. This is part of her Salacious Legacy. Absolutely love this cover so much. It's beautiful. And this is Julian Cade, who is the son of Daisy and Rowan Cade. And he is co-running the Salacious Players Club. It's called something else here. What's it called in this one? Oh, I can't remember what it's called in here. Oh, wait. Nope, it doesn't even say on the little ticket. Why didn't it? But anyway. And then there's Archer, who is a fighter, and he lives in the same building as Julian. And then there is Freya, who is a chef, and they first meet because she's friends with Julian's sister, and she is going to cook for the parents' anniversary party. And then the three of them get stuck in an elevator together, and it kind of changed their trajectory for what happens between them. Now, I really, really, really wanted to love this one, and I think it had a really strong beginning, and I think that she did at times show how the relationships were building between the three of them. But then honestly, the issue with this one for me was the amount of time jumps. Like when I wanted to see more breakthroughs in their relationship, she would have like a time jump and you were just supposed to then hear that they've gotten closer. I wanted to see more of them being closer, right? It's that thing I was saying, like, show me, don't tell me. And I feel like she would use the sex as the emotional progress, which absolutely erotic romance can, and I consider this an erotic contemporary romance. But because there is three people in this relationship, I really wanted to see more of that on the page and the things they were doing to build those individual relationships, and it not just be sex. Like, she has showed a sex scene between, three of them together, and then she'd shown different sex scenes of them paired up, but I wanted to see them doing other things. I wanted to see them going on dates, working on each of their relationships. And I feel like Sarah Kate usually does that really well, so this left me feeling a little bereft, but overall, it was still fun, and so that was one that I gave it a 4, but I expect so much out of a Sarah Kate polyamorous relationship because she's written them for me so well. Like, some of hers are my very favorites, and that one just kind of fizzled, which was a bummer. It was a bummer. Okay, then there was Wilder Saint, and this was one that I had it for Must Love Audio, and this was a bit of a forbidden romance between Sebastian and Hallie, and it was a step-sibling romance, but they have been step-siblings for a long time. However, Hallie's dad died when they were young, so it was that scenario of like their parents got together, they each had a young kid, and they loved both of their parents, and they were really close. And then Hallie's dad was killed. And so Sebastian's mom, though, she had adopted Hallie and was taking care of her. But when they were young, like teenagers, they started to fall in love. They, I think, are just 2 years apart. And maybe even just 1. I don't know. They're really close in age, right? And they just were always there for each other, and they were each other's like sexual awakening. And Sebastian's mom just really didn't know what to do about this. And so there were decisions she had to make that, in all honesty, I got to tell you, I probably would have made the same ones. Even though these kids are telling me they're in love, I just don't know how you wouldn't be a bit disturbed, speaking as someone who's 33 now, right? And I'm thinking about how she was a young single mom of both her son and her adopted daughter, and they're falling in love with one another. And they refuse to even think about anyone else or try anything else. I think I would be very overwhelmed and scary about it too, right? But some of the choices that she made to separate them and get them to try to see anyone else definitely put a wedge between her and her kids then, so that's the other side of it, right? Like, how do you work through that scenario? So I honestly really felt for the mom, okay? I did, because how do you navigate that, right, without feeling horrified in some aspect? Like, I don't know how you do. So I felt for her a lot. I really did. But yeah, it's a forbidden, spicy romance. That's what QB Tyler writes. And in all honesty, it had some pretty deep, beautiful moments, how they dealt with trauma. But it was mostly they only meet up every so often. They usually meet up around the anniversary of her dad's death. Because again, it was very impactful to both of them. He was the only father that Sebastian knew either. And they will fuck during that time, and then they go back to their lives. And they're supposed to try to see other people during that time and finally fall for someone, and they just never do because they're always holding out for one another. So when they meet up this time, which Sebastian's mom is actually getting remarried, which, I mean, I think it's been 20 years. So there's no problem with her wanting to get remarried. But, you know, they have to make the decision, are we going to try to be together or do we completely cut it off? Because this isn't good for either of us. So, yeah, it was spicy. It was hot. I think it's one of those that it's just so, it's a bonkers plot. And it isn't just because even of the step-siblings part of it. It's just QB Tyler writes sex in really inappropriate places, writes people getting boners and getting wet in really inappropriate places. The sex is always going to be the most erotic thing you've ever read. There was also a pegging scene, though, that I did appreciate. I mean, that didn't happen in a public place. So it was spicy. It was fun. But it often feels about, like, what is the taboo element I can have? And then they're just having sex as much as they can. So what was even taboo about it, right? So I don't know. I really enjoy her audiobooks too, though. This one was narrated by Connor Craze and Nico Austin. And it was sad. It was hot. So it certainly did that. Okay. Then there was also Show Me Forever by Jennifer Susavec. And this one was Rena and Oliver. And this one was a surprise pregnancy from a kind of forbidden romance. So I believe she does either the marketing or social media for the hockey team. She does something for the hockey team where she's absolutely not supposed to be with the players. But one of the players really wants her. And they end up having like a one-night stand, and they end up continuing to kind of like hook up, where she is always trying to resist him. And then she discovers that she's pregnant. He immediately wants to be super involved. And she spends the rest of the book kind of acting like there's no way he could be serious about wanting a baby. And that's something that I'm always a bit like insulted on his behalf, especially because before he ever knows she's pregnant, he's begging her to be with him. And he's kind of the one who it's like, dude, she really doesn't seem that into you. She likes your dick. Like, and I don't want to say bad stuff about her because I also understood her point of view. Her job was on the line, but he was so invested in her and wanted her so badly. And then he says that to her, right? It's absolutely not just about the baby. And she's so convinced he's going to walk away at any moment. I'm like, well, you're certainly not doing anything to make him want to stay, but he's not going to leave his kids. So girl, get on board with it. Like, he's not leaving, you know? So yeah, I know I said these ones were all 4 stars, but like some of this stuff just bugged me. So yeah, then though, it's funny because I also, of course, all these ones are 4 stars I'm talking about. There was More Than Friends by Kat Singleton. And this one is a friends to lovers, with a surprise baby that's not hers, right? So I've only read this like 2 other times actually. And I love it when it shows up. I won't pretend otherwise, because what happens is one of his one night stands, because these two, they've become friends through their friends getting together. And so they just basically decided to be besties because they're like, you know what? Our friends, they're going to be together all the time. We should get along. So even if you're not really my type of guy friend, even if, I can't get away from these. Even if I think you're a bit of a player or this, you're going to be my bestie. So they're friends, and he's super attracted to her, and he kind of wants to convince her to give him a try, but he also knows that it might not be the smartest move to mess things up. And he also loves having her as a friend. So good for him. He has good taste. But then one of his exes, or not even an ex, like a fling, drops a beautiful baby off at, I think it's a baby girl, drops a beautiful baby on his doorstep. And what is he to do but absolutely fall in love with his child in 2.5 seconds flat? And then when Rena comes home from, no, that's who I just read. Charlotte and Jude is this couple. He's like, I need Charlotte's help, and so I can't mess anything up. I have to stop being flirty. I can't ruin anything. I need her help. And so he makes that decision to stop trying to convince her to be with him so that she can help him raise his child. only because she's already living with him and she's a wonderful person, like not because he's assuming she'll help him raise his kid. And for her, she's like, yes, I'm meant to be this. I'm so excited to help out. So it's really beautiful, the decision that they make there, even if it's kind of heartbreaking at the same time for a little bit, because you're like, wow, there went our opportunity to be together, but now we have this beautiful baby girl we're taking care of. And when we spend all this time taking care of her, we're maybe sort of going to fall in love anyway. So that one was really cute. Then there was His Empress by Amelia Rossi. Now, this was one, I'll just tell you, I wanted to love this one so much more than I did. But I mean, I still gave it a 5 stars. Not that it was awful, but this was one I talked pretty extensively about it when I reviewed it before, where they hook up with one another in Paris without exchanging each other's names. Then it's an accidental pregnancy. Wow, apparently I had a lot of those that were all 4 stars. I love accidental pregnancy. I read a ton of them. I just have certain beats that I want to hit when it's a surprise pregnancy, which we'll actually get to a few of those in this today as well. But yeah, we have this surprise pregnancy, and she doesn't know how to contact him because they both gave each other fake names. And he is a Bratva Pecan, and she is the sister of an Italian mafia boss. In fact, the same Italian mafia boss who's married to his sister. So we have Dimitri and Sienna. And when both of their families end up getting together to have actually a shower, a baby shower for Amelia, or I think it is, that's what it is. Anyway, the point being, he finally is meeting up with his sister again and his reluctant like brother-in-law, and he sees her again. He thinks it was all a trap. And then when he finds out that she's the one that's pregnant that he's there to see, he feels like this was all a trick. Because of course she planned getting pregnant. And of course she knew who he was, right? They had never met, even though their siblings had gotten married. They had never met one another. Because he was very secretive and busy ruling, you know, now that his father is dead and all these things. So my biggest issue with this is that I really love the first 2 books in this series. They all have a different kind of like disability. And in this one, the heroine has ADHD and some other things. And like, because it's an accidental pregnancy, she actually has to stop her medications while she's pregnant. So that leads to some very interesting parts of it. However, he brings her to his home in Chicago, taking her away from her family because he does want his heir. And he really isolates her there because he's almost punishing her for them both having a one-night stand with a stranger. And I just really did not like that. We did that. And I understand he's distrustful and we have those problems. But the way that he treated his pregnant wife, because yes, they end up doing an arranged marriage too, or marriage of convenience. The way he's choosing to isolate her and try to keep her apart from everything as almost a punishment because there was this woman he felt something for, and because she's the sister of his enemy, which by the way, who's also married to his other sister, he's punishing her. And I don't care that he was a mafia don. I thought it was icky for him to punish her. And I don't think he groveled enough at the end. So I gave it 4 stars because it was still a good read and I love this author, but I wanted Dimitri to struggle more is what I wanted. So there's that. And then after that, there was Sacred Ruin by Millie Kane. And this was book 3 in the original Sin series. This is actually one that takes place at a religious mental institution. So please be prepared for those things. Both of those things are kind of triggers for me. However, this story is kind of about the devil in disguise. Literally, he goes undercover as a father there to do some reconnaissance. He's an assassin. And when he discovers our heroine is being kind of drugged out of her mind and being kept here, he becomes very interested in her. And then when she happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, of no fault of her own, she's literally been drugged there and is being held in the closet. When she sees him murder the man who had held her in the closet, she reveals herself and then asks for his help to escape. And she tries to hire the assassin to do work for her. Now, he says, I don't think you could afford me, but what I do want is to sleep with you. Okay, he uses some eloquent words, but really, he makes the promise to, because he realizes this girl isn't actually crazy. And he makes this deal with her that he will kill who she needs killed. He will do what she needs done if she will also have sex with him. Because nobody said that he's a morally great man. So there's that. I enjoyed this book quite a bit. I think it was a little tonally inconsistent for how heavy the beginning of this is. I just didn't quite know where I went. But I love this series, her Original Sin series. Unholy Vows is one of my absolute favorite. And I liked how her forced institutionalization, which is something that normally it's one of my biggest triggers. It terrifies me. But her beginning the book at an institution was helpful. And it's such a weird mix in this book because though they are doing awful experiments on her and some horrible things are happening, she is being kind of saved from being forced into a marriage with an evil man. I mean, as long as he chooses to continue ignoring her anyway. So it was very twisty, very interesting. And it was pretty unique, which I liked that about it for what it was doing. Okay, and then I have one more Mafia. There was a lot of these. There was also just the Mafia Romance readathon, so there was a few for that as well. A recent release was Cruel Savior by Lilith Vincent. Now, this was one that I didn't read as an arc, which is honestly the first one of this list today that, like, I just read it on my own. Because so far, all of them have been ones I've had ALCs or arcs for. I know I haven't been saying it for every single one, but they all have been. This one is Lilith Vincent. I'm not on her arc team, and I definitely could get on it. I could, but I'm really trying to hold back from being on any more because I'm on so freaking many arc teams. I need to control myself. And this was one I wanted to just read at my own pace because Lilith Vincent is usually off her rocker in the best way, and I need to be in a mood for one of her books. And I'm just finding that for a lot of Mafia arc teams, honestly. I'm only on a couple of them now, because it's really mood specific for me to get into them. But anyway, I read Cruel Savior for the Mafia Romance readathon. And this one as well, I went on a pretty long, detailed explanation and rant for in my last weekly wrap up. And I just don't have the energy to do it again today. This video is always already 30-minute long and we haven't even gotten to my favorite books. So I need to cut it back. Main issue with this one is that she let her father do too much. I know that sounds awful because she's being abused by her dad, but when the hero enters the situation in this book and he proves to her that she can trust him, I needed her to get on board faster because the only way her father is able to keep doing these awful things to her is because she won't walk away. And again, there can be all those reasons, but a book is a fantasy and I can wish for it to be different, you know? And I wish that was different. But I still enjoyed it overall. I really want to continue the series, and that one was a 4-star read. Alrighty, let's get to the 4.5-star stack, which is these ones. Okay, so 4.5 stars now. I had Westbound by Maggie Rodden. Now, this is probably the one on the list that it took me the longest to get to it. But yeah, I listened to that one in March. And this was the third book in the, oh shoot, what's this series called? I can't remember what the series is called now. But anyway, the series by Maggie Rodden, this is the third one. And this one also involves a nun and someone undercover as a priest, which is very interesting. Though very different scenarios, kind of. The heroine chose to be at this nunnery, or at this monastery, and our hero, though, goes undercover as a priest because he's spying on her because she's the daughter of their enemy. And he's hoping actually to either blackmail her or kidnap her or do something to her to get one up on their father. But what the guy, his family doesn't understand is that there are reasons why she went to this monastery, this sacred place, became a nun, and is really fighting, you know, against what was at home, basically. And it isn't as simple as just wanting to leave and get out of there. There's a lot going on. And they're not even at the monastery for too long before he's kind of forced to extract her and take her back home against her will. But eventually they get on the same team to try to take down not her father, but her husband, who is a total piece of shit. So that one was a great time, actually. And I can't wait to finally read the last one. Hopefully I get an audio for that one too. Okay, then there was Captivation Creek by Clare Kingsley. This is the 5th book in her Haven series, and I loved this one because this one was actually a friends to lovers, and even better than that, they were organically friends. Like, they're not friends because of their siblings or because of their dads or because of anything else. They meet at work. They're both teachers. He's a football coach. She's an art teacher. He also teaches math, and they become besties. And they do so much together. And at the beginning of this book, our heroine is in a relationship. And not to go in the whole thing, I'm going to start moving a bit quicker with some of these. But she breaks up with her boyfriend and the guy kicks her out. And so she moves in with, this one is Theo and Penelope. She moves in with Theo for a little bit and their friendship goes on a progression that it does. But this is also a suspense. So there is some fun suspense elements going on. And I say fun because yes, someone still dies, but it isn't one where like either of them is truly, truly in danger. It's more about they kind of get involved in a true crime scenario. So then our heroine gets in a bit of danger, but I love it. And I just love this series. I love suspense romance when it's done the way that Clare Kingsley does it, or like Catherine Cowles or such, which Catherine Cowles is coming up on this list too, don't you worry. Okay, then I have Bloodsinger was a 4.5 star, which I've already talked about in a ton of videos. I've talked about it in a 5 random review where I did Romantasy recently. This was the 2nd book in the Fire That Binds series by Juliet Cross, and it is these witches and dragons have taken over Rome, and there's slavery, and there's fighting against slavery, and just all these things in this one. So really, really enjoyed that one. Okay, then there was Flow by Tia Louise, and that was the 2nd or 3rd book, I don't know, in the new Bradford series. This one involves a heroine who is going to college, the college in California for a short amount of time to try to figure out how to fix her family peach trees, which are being taken over by a dangerous fungus. Yes, that's a fungi, whatever. And our hero is a hockey player and she is living with him then because his cousins have all moved out with their couple, with their partners. And so she's staying for him for a short amount of time and feelings happen there. He's a hockey player. And this whole series has women in STEM and different things. So she's in like agriculture and things like that. Previous heroine was in like disease control and things like that. So really interesting jobs in STEM. This heroine, is her mom the weather woman, or was that the last one? I don't know. But one of the heroines in the original Bradford series was like a meteorologist. Like there was cool jobs. I love that. And then one that I just read, so I haven't talked about this one yet, but I'll still keep it quick because I will be talking about it on Sunday's video. But it was Flat Out by Tiffany Patterson. I love Tiffany Patterson. And this, I believe, is finally our 3rd triplet in the Townsend Legacy series. But he started his own series. And this one is Formula One racing. The hero is Travis Townsend, and our heroine's name is Alicia, though it definitely threw me because it is spelt the way I've always said Alyssa, but luckily I listened to the audiobook and they said Alicia, so I'm saying Alicia. But this is a surprise pregnancy one as well. They have a fun night in Vegas, and then she has only kind of just found out. She's found out a few weeks ahead, but she knows who he was because he was there for a race night. Like she knows who she had a one-night stand with, but she doesn't know like how to tell him, and she's been really sick. So like I give her a pass with this because he literally is a famous racer, and how does she get in contact with him and just be like, yeah, you knocked me up, you know? She's dealing with that. But she ends up, she's also gotten laid off from her job, just in like it just happened that way. Wasn't because of sleeping with him or because of anything else. It was just a turnover. And she ends up working a catering gig that Travis is at. And when she ends up getting like sick at work that night, he ends up taking care of her, I think is what happens. And then he ends up finding out that she's pregnant, and she doesn't want a relationship at all, but he is like, girly, I want to do with my baby and I want you, so you should come along for the ride. Now, what I will say though, is that in comparison to a lot of the other Townsend men, he is very gentle and persuasive about how they should be together. And I really liked that. I love how Tiffany Patterson writes possessive men as well, but I really appreciated Travis in this one. It was just a bit of a different beat than some of the other ones were, especially what like the last one I read, which was the acting one. That dude was just so possessive. And I'm like, we're in Hollywood. Like why are you acting like this? Like that one wasn't, this one isn't a dark romance either, but some of her other books are. And that one was like a standalone kind of like acting one where he was an actor and she was the clothing design, or like the I don't know, the costume designer or whatever. And he was super possessive. And this one, Travis was so like soft and patient with her. Now he does still make sure she gets a job and really wants her to live with him so he can look out for her. And he actually does have someone who's out to hurt him. So him being a bit more possessive would have even been understandable. But he could just read her so well. And he just knew that wasn't going to go over well if he did it that way. And so I really appreciated how he kind of took his time with her and won her over. And she also lost her parents in a car crash. So him being a Formula One racing driver is kind of her worst nightmare. So there's that as well. There's definitely that. But I love that one. Alrighty. Let's get into our 5-star reads here. So the first one is Across the Vanishing Sky by Catherine Cowles. I loved this one. I am literally so freaking excited for the next book in the series because the setup in this one was so good for that one. But this one truly spoke to me also as someone who's a true crime girly. And if I had my best friend, because that's what happens, her best friend gets stolen off of the hiking trail that they're out on, okay? And for the next year, this woman moves hell and high water to find her best friend. She refuses to believe that her friend just fell into the river or just got hurt. And so she ends up moving to the small town that is near where her friend disappeared. She moves her and her son there, and her name is Braden. And she moves to Starlight Grove to try to find her best friend. She's like, I will discover what happened to her. And so she moves her son and moves there. And she ends up meeting Dex Archer, who is actually a ex-FBI agent. Well, not even a full agent. He worked for the FBI, and you might have met him in the previous series if you read those ones. But you can absolutely start fresh with this because we're meeting Dex's family, is really what it is. They're going to be the brothers who are our heroes in this series. And he worked for the FBI. He was a hacker. And his whole family, their father was a serial killer. And they have lived under the weight of that since it was revealed I don't know how many years back it was at this point. But he got himself into some trouble when he was young and he had to work with the FBI. And now he's finally back home, and him and his brothers actually do kind of like covert missing person stuff. But their rules are never someone who's close to home and never someone that we care about because we can't get involved. But of course, when he starts to discover what happened to Braden's friend, he can't help but ask his brothers to make an exception. And so good. I don't want to say anymore, but if you love true crime or missing person, and I know it always feels weird because if you're not into true crime, saying that you love true crime just doesn't sound great. But it's a thing. It's a genre for a reason. And Catherine Cowles really tapped in to me with something with that. Okay, I really liked it. Okay, next we have Hunt the Villain by Rena Kent. Yes, I couldn't help myself. I loved this one as well. This is two different like rival Bratva families really. And this one is Vaughn and Julian. And if you've read Kiss the Villain, you probably know a little bit more about what the situation might be here. Because Julian was actually the guy that one of the heroes in that one was going to fake sexual assault, which doesn't sound great, but he ended up not being there, and the situation at the beginning of that book happens. Well, these two actually go to a like Bratva summer camp that all the pecan sons go to, or the head up sons go to. There's really only supposed to be one pecan, but whatever, you get it. Where the rival families send their sons to. And so we learn a bit about their history with that. And now it's a few years later, and Vaughn is actually like dating a woman, gonna get engaged to her. And Julian ends up fucking her and proving that she's a cheater. And now they both are going at each other. That was a really bad explanation of this one. But the point being why I love this so much is two men going super hard at one another. It's clear most of it is sexual tension, but their families are rivals. There's hate that goes deep. And then they've also had this competition aspect with one another as well. And finally, some things are going to bubble over. Some memories from the past are going to come back. And they're going to have to face the music, okay? And fuck it out. That's what they're gonna have to do. And I loved that one, okay? Because something that I love, all right? One of the reasons I love dark romance is when they can equally go hard at one another and it never feels like someone is in the weaker position. And I don't mean that for the sexual dynamic part, okay? That's a whole nother thing. That's between them, how it plays out. I mean with how they mess with each other. Which, yes, of course, lead over into the bedroom, but I'm not talking about needing one of them to be the submissive or whatever the sexual dynamics are. I'm talking about when they torture one another, right? Because usually in a dark romance, even in an romance, there's like one who's being tormented and then the tormentor. And Julian and Vaughn, they can go at each other equally, and I love it. Okay? Love it. All right. Also, we have All for Love by Willow Astor, which was another book in her like North Shore series, or Windy Harbor, I should call it what it actually is. But to me, it's the North Shore series because it takes place near Duluth. So that's always what I think about. But that one is another one night stand. And then they discover that their families are enemies. Well, really more her family is an enemy to his. His family is kind of just like live and let live. But they meet on a plane when she trips and falls into his lap. She actually faints from lack of like food or whatever. She'd been too nervous. She had just dropped her little girl off with her daddy in California, and she's flying back to Minnesota. And they end up having a weekend night stand together before finding out who each other is, because they didn't say last names until a certain point. And then when she's in his apartment, I think it's her apartment. I don't know. They're in one of each other's apartments and they start seeing pictures on the wall, and then it clicks into place who they are. But they've already built this amazing connection. They've never felt what they're feeling for one another. He knows about her child and loves kids and just thinks she's doing such a good job at being a mom, a young mom. And he just doesn't want to give it up. So he's like, we'll hide it from your dad. That's fine. But I want to keep seeing you. Because if this is worth it, then it's really worth it. But he might not know what he's into with her dad, who is a crazy motherfucker. Okay, there was also King of Gluttony. Love this one. Love this couple so much. This is Sebastian and Maya. And their families are actually not rivals. They're friends. But they are rivals from always trying to one-up each other in boarding school and in their careers. And then their families decide they want to collab on this business opportunity. And Maya and Sebastian are forced to work together. And so all these feelings that they might say are hateful feelings that they've been pushing down for all these years are coming up to the top. And it's called King of Gluttony because Sebastian is a chef or wants to be a chef, and their families both work in food. And so that's why this one is King of Gluttony. Oh, and there's also the little fact that her mother is trying to get her married nonstop. So there's that. And then the final 5-star to talk about is Maple and Moonlight by Daphne Elliott, which this is another one that I just finished, so I haven't even reviewed it yet on my channel. But this is another one in her, shucks, what's this series called? Is it Maplewood? I think the series might be called Maplewood, but either way, this one is a single mom with 3 children who moves to this small town now that her abusive husband is in prison for throwing her autistic son down the stairs. Okay, he already was abusive to her, and she had been nervous to leave him and afraid because his family was pretty powerful, and she's very isolated with him, and she was honestly okay with him hurting her. But as soon as he started hurting one of her kids, she was like, all right, I don't know where I'm going to find the strength to do this, but I'm leaving. And so she's moved to this small town. She's a teacher there, trying to get her kids involved in everything, and she's renting a home from Josh, who he was the oldest son of like this family group here, and he runs the maple farm, and he's renting one of his rental home out to this family. And he is a bit of a grump. He has these rules for keeping the kids safe that our heroine, I'll admit, she is a bit annoying at times because he's gently trying to set these rules to keep the kids safe. Like there's equipment, there's stuff that can't be messed with, there are animals that roam around. And so he's really trying to keep them safe. But and this I thought was written really well because of how her kids have been treated by a man before, with rules and ridiculous things, she's very protective of her kids, which is beautiful. I love it. But he's all like, yo, I just want your kids to be safe. They're not in trouble. I just don't want them to get hurt. And so at times in the beginning, that is kind of annoying to see her just being almost irrational with him when he's like, listen, your kids are great. I love them. I just need your son, who's very curious, to not get his hand chopped off or get eaten by a bear. And so my gruffness is me looking out for your kid, right? He also has this dog who is the coolest big pup ever. And I'll tell you this one little tease. I'm going to talk about this book more on the weekly wrap up because I loved it. But he has this big dog who every morning will stand right behind her vehicle so she can't move, pull forward or back up until every one of them says good morning to the dog. Like all of them have to come and give him a hug before, or some smooches or some scratchies before he will let them leave. It's so fucking cute, you guys. I think Wayne is the name of the dog. And of course, not of course, but the autistic boy, really bonds with the pup. And yeah, every morning when they're going to school, if they don't come and say goodbye to him, he will stand right behind her car. And this is like a wolf dog type dog here, okay? And it's so cute. And one of the times in there when one of the kids is sick, the dog looks and he doesn't get his smooches from the third kid. And the mom is like, Wayne, she's not here. I need to get going. And he's just like, where is she? I need my smooches from all of your children. And when the girl's not there, he figures out something's wrong and then wants to go and sit by the front door and guard the kid that is sick. And it's so freaking cute. I love intelligent animals, okay? I love it. So it's adorable. All right. And then I have 2 6-star books to round this all out, which is wonderful. In the last 2 months, I had 2 6-star reads. I will just basically show them to you because I've talked about them ad nauseum in the videos I recommended. And I do have in June, so just a couple weeks, I'm going to be doing all my 6-star reads so far. So I'll talk about these books in a lot of depth there. But the ones you'll probably know, there is Unbound by Peyton Corinne, which this one is also a second chance, but it's within college. They had got together freshman year and then something happened and now it is senior year and they haven't been able to stop thinking about each other. I love this book. It makes me want to curl up and cry in a ball. It's so beautiful. I adore it so much. And yeah, I just love it. And then, of course, there is Rise of Ink and Smoke, which I'm hoping to get the audiobook for soon. And I'll also be rereading this one soon because it's time to annotate this puppy. It's time to annotate this puppy. And I can't wait because it's always so beautiful. But anyway, those are my 6-star rates. So that is all of the last recent releases ranked. I think there's 23, 24 that I talked about here. Love it. Let me know which recent releases have been your favorites. If you've read some of these, if you agree, disagree, keep it respectful, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you made it this far, leave me some hearts down below if nothing else. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video, friends. Bye.